am asked to speak on the higher education teachers as public intellectuals. Why do I choose this topic? Because this is something which I have been doing all through my academic life. I joined Osmania University in 1988. Since then, I have been articulating the public concerns, participating in the political contestation on a wide range of issues. I was part of the India's glorious tradition of argumentation in whatever limited way I can. And this was possible only because I was a teacher in the university. If I were in a government, I would have been expelled right in the first 2 years only. So many people surprisingly ask, sir, you are paid by government. How are you so critical of the Prime Minister, Chief Ministers? Well, I said, I am not part of the government. I am part of the university, which is certainly not part of the government. In fact, there are dozen Supreme Court judgments to tell that a university teacher is not part of government. Why was it so created? The government pays you the salaries. I am sure university earns very little. So why we in the teachers of higher education are supposed to have an autonomous mind? Why do we have this autonomous mind? We have this autonomous mind? Because society develops, prospers through intellectual churning. Societies advance through continuous interrogation. A society that stops to interrogate, a society that stops to articulate, will have a slow death. This the world over, we have several experiences. So therefore, there should be somebody who needs to interrogate, who needs to question, who needs to articulate the concerns of the society, and no one else except the teachers in higher education can do. That's precisely the reason we are endowed with intellectual autonomy. So my question is, to what extent we are doing that? We, I mean not the group here, we as teachers of higher education. And what are the hindrances? What are the constraints to playing this role of an argumentative mind, of an interrogative mind? Why do we need to question? So Ramila Thapa says, noted historian, question or not to question can never be the question. Question or not to question can never be the question. If you look at the history of science, Newton, the parable goes that Newton was sitting under an apple tree. An apple fell on him. If I were there, I would have seen for 2 more apples. So, but Newton did not see that. Newton thought differently. He asked an interesting, rather curious question. Why should this apple fall down? If my son or my daughter asked this question, perhaps I would rush to a psychiatrist. Why my child is asking such kind of questions? Where will the apple fall? It obviously falls down. Why will it go up? But that very question led to the discovery of Newton's law of gravitation. I'm sure there are teachers in science, physics here, where my knowledge of physics was more than 3 decades old. I stopped studying physics in 83, 4 decades. But without Newton's law of gravitation and Kepler's laws of planetary motion, you cannot imagine space science. Am I right? So why this simple question led to one of the most exciting discoveries of science, called Newton's law of motion. It applies even to politics. It applies even to everything. Jagan Mohan Reddy got 151 seats, reduced to 11. TDP which got 23 seats, went up to 164. Is it not Newton's third law of motion? So it is simple. If I apply physics to politics, it is Newton's third law of motion. Am I right? So that is how the beauty Somebody asked me a question. Well, I asked a question. I get too many newspapers, so I'm not an exact example. I asked my neighbor, which newspaper do you buy? He said, I buy Inadu. I asked the other person, the other neighbor in the apartment. I said, I buy the Hindu. I asked them, why do you buy Inadu or why do you buy Hindu? Why did you not think of buying another newspaper? There was no answer from them. Then I was reminded of the Newton's first law of motion. Every body continues to be in the state of rest or of uniform motion unless it is acted upon by an external force. So every person continues to read the Hindu or Inadu with their reading unless there is some external pressure. Am I right? That should explain the behavior of a newspaper customer. So where did this knowledge come from? This knowledge is an integration of law, science with journalism. But are we accepting this interdisciplinary character? Just try to Google when Rabindranath Tagore met Albert Einstein. The greatest mind in physics means greatest heart in literature. So what kind of conversation this might have created? Are our universities allowing, are our colleges allowing such interdisciplinary interaction? You should tell me. I'll speak for a couple of minutes. Then I think I was told that you are a very interactive group. Quite surprising and quite pleasant also. So we will have more discussion. But are we really allowing this? So the world is increasingly becoming interdisciplinary. Am I right? I went to MIT in 2013. I saw a board called Suresh Subra, I think, if I remember properly. He later became the Carnegie Mellon president. He was the Dean Faculty of Engineering at Massachusetts Institute of Technology, world's topmost school. He is a mechanical engineering studying malaria. He was studying the mechanical properties of red blood corpuscles. So a mechanical engineer studying malaria, if I ask this in my university, I will be seen as a madman. So that is how the world is. My own life, out of experience, I am a graduate in electronics and postgraduate in journalism, doctorate in political science, and taught economics at Birla Institute of Technology and Sciences for 4 years when I was a legislator. Is there any link between electronics and economics? I never had a formal degree in economics. The only mistake I did was when I studied political science was to teach my wife when she wrote MA Political Science exam. I was never a student of political science. So somebody may say, sir, you might have failed in science, so shifted to social sciences. Certainly not. I had a distinction in electronics. Absolutely not. I was a state second in physics. I was state third in chemistry in intermediate. So absolutely nothing. Out of choice, I moved from electronics to economics with a seamless integration. But are our universities allow this? Absolutely not. Interestingly, in the same building, I spoke on international trade issues to officers of central services, including Indian economic services. But I was never invited by my own economics department in Arts College during my 3.5 decades of service. 3.5 decades, not one day. So somebody who can address officers of Indian economic services, not an ordinary office services, am I right? So this is the silos in which we live in. So the first thing, if we want to be a public intellectual, is break these silos. For that matter, what do you mean by public intellectual? Public intellectual, Ramila Thapa defines, and that is the most acceptable definition across the world, is somebody who has some standing in their world of their own. If you are a teacher in higher education, you should have some intellectual standard. So when you say something, the society listens to you with respect and ask fundamental questions, seek explanations for public actions. So we seek explanations from the authorities institutions of authority. So that is the role of a public intellectual. If the government of India comes out with one nation, one election, there should be 100 university teachers articulating their position. I'm not telling they should oppose it. I leave it to their own intellectual conscience. But I'm sure somebody should have a deliberation. How many of our colleges and universities debated on this one nation, one election? When Telangana government was coming out with white papers after white papers, how many colleges and universities debated on that? How many colleges and universities came out with an alternative document to how to double the Telangana economy by another 2 years, within 5 years? So I have not seen. Please enlighten me if you have seen. I want a research paper or a thesis or a document or a compilation of seminar papers on the challenges before the Telangana economy and how to double Telangana economy in next 5 years. I am sure this is the most important priority of the state government. But are we reflecting? So when we do not reflect, why should society sustain and provide continuous fiscal support to us? That's a fundamental question. If universities cannot find original answers to the question that the society continuously raises, what the problems of society, the questions in the existing knowledge, so that is the role of a public intellectual. Unfortunately, this is not being done because the first problem which I said is we live in intellectual silos with each discipline not interacting with the other. That's the first problem. Second problem, there is a syllabi specific, exam oriented, curriculum specific, exam oriented, classroom confined education. We are not moving away from that. So the classroom confined, syllabi specific, examination oriented allows the student only to think mechanically. Yesterday I saw an interesting post by my son on LinkedIn. Recently is a senior manager at Google in US. He has a daughter, so I had a granddaughter who is 1 year old. So they came to India recently. So obviously we taught her, Tali fan edi. She immediately started showing. So we enjoyed for over 2 months. So every day morning, Tali fan edi. She immediately showed. Tali fan edi. She immediately showed. So after going to US, my son asked her, Tali fan edi. She immediately showed, and there is no fan. In America, there are no ceiling fans. Am I right? So then he got it out. He posted on LinkedIn. Why did this little kid was showing top even when there is no fan? అప్పటిదాకా మేము అనుకున్నాం నా మనవరాలు ఇంత ఇంటెలిజెంట్, ఇది ఇప్పుడే 1 yearలోనే ఫ్యాన్ గుర్తుపడుతుంది అనుకున్నాం. అది ఫ్యాన్ గుర్తుపట్టలే. ఫ్యానే గుర్తుపట్టి ఉంటే అమెరికాలో చూపెట్టదు కదా, ఫ్యాన్ లేదన్నది లేదు అక్కడ అన్నది కదా. బట్ వాట్ డిడ్ షీ లెర్న్? షీ ఓన్లీ లెర్న్ సంథింగ్. సో ఫ్యాన్ ఏది అంటే పైకి చూడాలి, అదొకటే నేర్చుకున్నాయి. రైట్? దిస్ ఈజ్ ద ప్రాబ్లమ్ విత్ ద మెషిన్ లెర్నింగ్. This is the problem with the chat GPT. This is the problem with artificial learning. This is the problem with Google Gemini. Because that is trained on a set of data. So it will only answer based on the set of data on which it trained. It doesn't have a general intelligence to understand and react based on the changed reality. So it's like my granddaughter who did not differentiate between India and America. So she did not realize the change reality. Ceiling fan lunde భారతదేశం నుంచి సీలింగ్ ఫ్యాన్లు లేని అమెరికాకు వచ్చాను అన్నది దానికి అర్థం కాలే. అందువల్ల ఫ్యాన్ ఏది అంటే అది పైకి చూపెడుతుంది. సో this is also in the when artificial intelligence and machine learning has such a big deficiency, our university real learning is also like that. So we are increasingly becoming mechanical. We are increasingly becoming a discarded learning model, which all of us continue to discard in school education. Even today we say we do not allow children to ask questions. I always give this example. When a child saw stars twinkling in the sky, the child gets fascinated and comes to mother and asks, Amma, I saw stars twinkling on the sky. Why do they twinkle? Mother doesn't know. But every woman in this great country believes that her husband is the most intelligent being on earth. Unfortunately, husbands don't believe that. I'm sure husbands do not believe that, but women believe it. Men don't believe it. So, mommy says, Attali, go to dad and ask. As if dad is Albert Einstein's incarnation. So the child goes to dad and asks, Dad, I saw the stars twinkling in the sky. Why do they twinkle? Then the dad says, don't you have the homework? Because dad doesn't know the answer. He doesn't know the answer. He doesn't want to display his ignorance. So the child scared and goes to the teacher. And next day morning she asks the teacher, why do stars twinkle in the sky? That teacher says, it's not there in your syllabi. It won't come in your examination. That's the end of the matter. She will never ask questions. So are we allowing children in schools to question? Unfortunately, we are not. The environment, at least my understanding, if there is an exception, I appreciate. I'm only referring to a general prevalence situation. Generally prevalent situation. So generally prevalent situation is, it is still a monotonous speech model of teaching which we are involved in. So there is no application of the knowledge to the concrete condition. When I went to MIT, I went to student lab. I was surprised to see mini robots produced by students as a part of the project work. Compare it with the project works produced in the Xerox centers of Amirpet. I am sure the teachers in engineering who are here, if they know very well, there are project reports of many engineering colleges produced in the Xerox centers of Amirpet. So Amirpet was found its place even in economist. The kind of training, when economists can publish on Amirpet, what else can we think of? So this is the world which we are living in. So unless we create universities and colleges as centers which make additions to knowledge, which involve in the original thinking, then comes asking critical adversarial questions. When a government policy comes, when the free RTC bus ride was introduced by Telangana government, show me, if I am wrong, correct me, how many social science departments, whether economics, public administration, sociology, have done studies on how did this free RTC bus ride make a difference in the lives of women. 6 months have gone. Please update me. I want to know. Who has to tell the world that this scheme is good or bad? There is a political contestation. Somebody says it's good, somebody says it's bad, somebody says it's a wasteful expenditure. If somebody says it's a freebies, but I would like to know, did it make a difference in the life of the woman? So I want an academic study, an empirical study that analyzes the correlation between free RTC bus ride and the socio-economic status of women. But so I have not seen media. You should, in your colleges and university, if it has been done, please share it with me. I will be fascinated to tell it to the world. So because if you inform me, I will inform lakhs of people. That's an advantage with me. So the problem here is, my simple question is, who has to tell the world that whether this public policy measure is right or wrong? If we, the academicians, do not indulge in a probe of a particular policy. So this is what Abhijit Banerjee did. The Nobel Prize winner came all the way from MIT to study in Rajasthan And this is where he introduced the concept of randomized clinical trials to economics. Am I right? If there is a teacher in economics, please correct me if I am wrong. He has applied the science, knowledge of science, called clinical trials to economics. So, for an immunization program, he created two groups of people. One group was asked to administer immunization, vaccination to the children. Another group was offered a kg of pulses or an half kg of salt, and this revealed that the second group has accepted immunization, embraced immunization much more enthusiastically, finding a link between a dole or handout or a subsidy, whatever you may call, and the challenge of making universal immunization. Should we call this subsidy or should we call this development? So this raises a fundamental question in economics. So if you give a kg of pulses to motivate more women to bring children to immunization center, I am sure it is certainly not a subsidy, but it is a development input. So how did this conclusion come from? This conclusion has come from a field study of a Nobel Prize winning economist who was awarded Nobel Prize for his path-breaking theory of applying randomized clinical trials to the world of economics. So nobody thinks that clinical trials can be done in economics. So this is how you integrate knowledge in one stream to the knowledge in another stream and apply that knowledge to the reality in the world. That's the reason one great thinker said, theory is that which emerges out of practice and which enriches the practice. So it should emerge from the practice and it should enrich the practice. Unfortunately, there is an eminent disconnect between the world of theory and world of practice. Well, in the name of practice, we are talking about only skills. I do agree skills are required. We need expansion in higher education. We need equity in higher education. We need excellence in higher education. And obviously we need employability in higher education. But if you really want to make a child employable, you don't need to bring them to a degree college or university. Send them to ITI or Polytechnic. They will teach skills better than colleges and universities. So what is the difference between a skill and knowledge? Many people use it as interchangeability. They use it almost like synonyms. I'll give you a small example from my own field of journalism. I will teach them a skill of writing excellently a news story or a feature story. This is skill. I will impart to my students an ability to write or speak on a given subject very eloquently, a very prolific writing skill. I will teach them. But that is not the end of life. This can be used to cover a fashion show. This can be used to cover travails of tribals. So what determines that journalist orientation? So the skill is the same. Skill to report on lavish exhibition in Park Ayat and skill to report on a government school in Hyderabad in a very poor condition. The skill is the same, but the result is not the same. A lavish fashion show in 5-star hotel reported in a very talented way, or the condition of a public school in Hyderabad city depriving proper education to the marginalized. Both require a similar skill, but the impact of the both is not the same. I, as a conscientious human being, I love to see my children, my students, reporting more on the government schools rather than fashion shows. I am not denying that fashion shows are not required. So this is the knowledge. So knowledge is the differentiates between what is good and what is bad for the society. If I am teaching marketing, a low-cost water purifying device and marketing a new brand of liquor requires a similar skill, require a similar marketing skill. But if that skill is employed, you will have a different result altogether. So the result is not the same. So therefore the knowledge is something which distinguishes between what is good and what is bad. Knowledge is something which results in the greater advancement of a particular thing. So we are actually using skill and knowledge in a similar manner. So universities need to impart skills, but there are more centers of ideas. They are the places where the world is debated. The American universities are witnessing an intense debate on Israel attack and Gaza. At least more than 50 universities have seen massive student and teacher protests on the campuses talking about the history of Palestine, talking about the Israel occupation of Palestine. So show me how many universities in our state have witnessed this. Well, do we not have history? Our universities have seen Telangana movement. Our universities have seen left and ultra-left movements. Our universities and colleges have seen Vande Mataram movement. Telangana is a history of movements in campuses. And Telangana, which has a history of movement on campuses, is not agitated by Israel war on Gaza. I don't mind somebody supporting Israel also. I am not telling everybody should support Palestine. That's not the point. But at least somebody should discuss this. Should the university department should discuss, students should discuss, faculty should discuss. Are we discussing the jobless economic growth? Are we discussing the fall in private consumption? Are we discussing the increased household debt? Are we discussing how the lower savings is contributing to higher economic growth? Today what we are witnessing is an economic growth phenomenon which is fueled not by surplus money but by savings of the people. So people are cutting down their savings to spend, and this is certainly not a healthy indicator of economic growth. So this, and if you look at the consumption story, lavish luxury consumption is increasing. Villa sales, big apartment sales are rising, but not the affordable houses. Budget car sales are not rising, but the SUVs and posh cars sales are increasing. So what does this indicate? It indicates a grotesque inequalities in society which is resulting in a boom in the elite consumption and without the mass consumption increasing. Such an economic growth is absolutely unsustainable. But are we discussing this on our campuses? And forget about the campuses. Are we discussing with the society at large? To conclude, before I invite discussion, we not only debate in our classroom, we not only debate in our college, we not only debate on campus, it is our responsibility to debate in society. How do we debate in society? Well, the technology gives a wonderful opportunity. My media friends always tell, sir, we are extremely finding it difficult to get articulating teachers who speak on issues. So when the budget comes, in a couple of weeks you'll have the union budget. How many economics teachers are ready to analyze the budget the moment budget presentation is completed? Well, I asked a professor of economics, he said, can you give me a 1 week time? I said, in our media, 1 week is a very big time. Finance minister will forget that she has presented the budget. It doesn't happen like that. It happens, you have to analyze the budget on the same day, same time. You may write a research paper after 15 days. You may write a research paper after 3 months. But that doesn't work with the media. So how do we articulate our mind? Well, we have the media, you have the social media. Well, I do agree, media also do not bother about serious things. That's the reason I stopped going for debates quite some time. So I'm only speaking and posting on my YouTube. So believe me, when I started my YouTube in 2018, January, I had 2.5 lakh views with hardly 1,000 subscribers. Now I have 2 crore views a month. It's a mind-boggling number. 2 crore views a month with 9,45,000 subscribers. So, believe me.
Among them, one man.
Pardon? Not only you are one, and I'll tell you the secret also. I am not worried whether I get my pension or not. So you can understand. I'm simply not worried whether I get my pension or not. So, how this explains, I'm sure all of you can do it. Well, all of you can do it, may not be with an equal level of success. You may have more success, you may have less success. But the very spirit of doing it matters. Forget about the success. So this is the advantage. So we ask to reflect. We have to reflect. So when Citizenship Amendment Act comes, I want teachers to reflect. If some invention, artificial intelligence has come, can artificial intelligence become artificial general intelligence? And can it even invade human intelligence? Well, I want an engineering teacher to discuss. So this is something every field. You may be in any domain. You may be in any domain. Any domain of knowledge, the society needs erudition from you. The society needs knowledge from you. So the society will be a better society if it is informed society. And who should inform, if not we, the privileged teachers of higher education, who are endowed with the capability and insight to understand and comprehend complex phenomena. An ordinary person will not have either capability or opportunity to analyze and understand the complex social, economic and scientific phenomena. We have that kind of abilities, and if we are silent, the society, the history will not forgive us. So we need to make our voices heard loud and clear. So that is precisely the role of a public intellectual.